My name is Hannah. I'm 39 years old, and I grew up in Portland, Oregon, mostly in the parts of the city people don't talk about when they describe how beautiful it is. My earliest memories are of rain hitting the window of a foster home, the smell of bleach, and the sound of other kids crying in their rooms. My mother wasn't around much. Sometimes she'd come back, smelling like smoke and promises, swearing that this time things would be different. They never were. My father disappeared before I was old enough to ask where he went. So, I learned early that love came in short visits and long silences. I was the oldest of three. When the system separated us, I told my brother and sister I'd find them again someday. For a while, I really believed that, but time in foster care teaches you how easily people vanish. One day you're someone's sweetheart, the next you're a name on a file moving to another county. I used to watch the other girls in school, clean clothes, packed lunches, parents waving from the curb, and I wondered what it felt like to belong somewhere. I stopped asking after a while. It hurt less that way. Some of the homes were kind, others weren't. There were places where I learned how to make myself invisible, how to smile at the right time, how to agree even when my stomach twisted. Nobody tells you how much pretending becomes part of survival. By the time I turned 16, I didn't know what real felt like anymore. When I finally moved back in with my mom during high school, I thought it was a miracle. She had a small apartment and a boyfriend who seemed charming at first, the kind who joked too much, touched too long. I remember telling myself not to ruin it. We were finally a family again, and I wanted to believe in that so badly that I ignored every red flag. My mom worked nights. I took care of the bills, the cooking, the laundry. Her boyfriend started asking for help around the house. Then help turned into something darker. I didn't understand at first. I froze, just like I had years ago in the foster homes. I told myself it was my fault, that I had invited it somehow. Trauma has a way of convincing you that you deserve it. I graduated early, not because I was ambitious, but because I needed to get out. I took a bus across town, found a cheap room in a shared house, and started working double shifts at a diner. I told myself I was free, but freedom doesn't mean much when the past keeps whispering through every quiet moment. For years, I tried to live like nothing had happened. I dated the wrong people, drank too much, stayed in jobs that kept me exhausted enough not to think. The rain in Portland always made it worse. It's like the whole sky was heavy with memories I didn't want to face. People think trauma fades. That time erases it. It doesn't. It just hides until something, a sound, a smell, a look, drags it back into the room. For me, that moment came when I had my first child. I thought becoming a mother would heal me. Instead, it showed me how broken I still was. Every bedtime story, every small hand in mine, reminded me of the promises no one had kept for me. I wanted to do better. I really did. But the truth is, when you've been raised inside of chaos, normal life feels foreign. I didn't know how to accept love without fear, or how to give it without control. I spent my 20s running from pain, from people, from myself. Now, looking back, I can see that everything started long before the headlines, before the label, before the shame. It started in a house where nobody listened and a world that didn't know how to protect its children. This is not an excuse. It's just the truth. My story begins in the rain. A little girl who wanted to be loved and a woman who's still trying to learn what that word really means. My 20s looked normal from the outside: work, rent, small talk, but inside I was just surviving. I called it independence, but really it was isolation. I didn't trust anyone enough to love them, and I didn't trust myself enough to stay alone. I worked double shifts, came home to silence, and filled the emptiness with alcohol, distractions, and people who reminded me of the pain I said I'd escaped. I learned how to function with a broken compass. When people said I was strong, I smiled, but strength felt like numbness. I avoided sleep because that's when memories showed up, flashes of hands, dark rooms, the echo of voices I tried to forget. You don't outgrow trauma, you just learn to keep it quiet. By 30, I was tired. I stared at my reflection one morning and realized I didn't recognize the woman in the mirror. She looked like me, but older, harder. I called a counselor whose number I'd been carrying for months. It wasn't bravery, it was desperation. Therapy wasn't magic. It was slow, awkward, and painful. I learned to sit with memories instead of running from them. I learned that what happened to me wasn't my fault, but what I did with my pain was my responsibility. That truth cut deep. I wanted to believe that the cycle could end with me, that I could become someone who didn't pass on what she'd inherited. But healing doesn't erase the past. I made mistakes that changed lives forever. There's no version of my story that makes them okay. When everything came to light, the investigation, the court, the sentencing, I remember thinking, this is what it feels like when the truth finally wins. I didn't fight it. I told the truth because it was all I had left. Prison is another world, endless noise, metal, time. I thought it would destroy me, but in some ways, it stripped away everything false. I met women who carried pain that looked like mine, daughters, mothers, survivors, offenders. Most of us had been both hurt and harmful. The system doesn't fix that, but within those walls, we began to name it, to hold each other accountable, to say out loud the things we'd buried. Books became my escape. I read about trauma, forgiveness, and responsibility. I started writing letters, not for sympathy, but to understand myself. You are not the worst thing you've done, one counselor said. I wrote that on the inside of my locker and looked at it every day until I almost believed it. When I got out, the air felt too wide. I found a room in a halfway house, a job washing dishes, and a counselor who kept me grounded. Freedom isn't easy when you're rebuilding trust from ashes. Every day became a test to stay sober, stay honest, stay accountable. Some people forgave me, others never will. I don't blame them now. I live quietly. I wake up early, go to work, and take my medication. I still go to therapy. I still check in with the people who make sure I'm safe. Some nights are heavy. Guilt comes like a tide, but I've learned to let it pass without drowning in it. Accountability is not about punishment anymore. It's about protection. Protecting others from my brokenness. Protecting myself from denial. There's no redemption story here. Not yet. Just a woman learning how to live with the truth. I don't expect forgiveness, only the chance to do less harm. Every morning I open my eyes, take a breath, and whisper, be better than yesterday. That's all I can promise, and for now, it's enough. Freedom didn't feel like freedom at first, it felt like fear. Every sound, every knock on the door, every unfamiliar face made me flinch. I'd spent years being told when to stand, when to eat, when to sleep, and suddenly, the world expected me to know how to live again. I didn't, I just followed a list. Probation check-ins, therapy sessions, recovery meetings, one meal at a time. The first months out were the hardest. I rented a small room above a laundromat, slept with the window cracked so I could hear something human. I worked washing dishes at a diner near the river. The manager didn't ask about my past. He just said, show up on time and don't steal the tips. I did both. The rhythm of work kept me upright. Hot water, plates, steam, repeat. I walked everywhere. I couldn't afford a car, and buses made me anxious. So I walked through Portland's wet streets, past bridges and bookstores and people who never looked up. I memorized the smell of rain and detergent and the sound of my own shoes on concrete. For the first time, I started noticing beauty in small, ordinary things, the way morning light hit a puddle, or how strangers shared umbrellas in therapy. We talked about forgiveness. I said I didn't deserve it. My counselor said, forgiveness isn't a gift you wait for. It's a discipline you practice every day. You choose not to give up. I didn't understand at first, but over time, I realized forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past. It was about refusing to let it decide the future. One afternoon, I visited a small recovery center where volunteers helped women leaving prison find housing and jobs. I went there as a guest, but the director asked if I wanted to help with intake forms. I stayed for hours. The women were nervous, some defensive, all exhausted. I recognized the look in their eyes, the mix of fear and hope. When one of them whispered, "You don't know what it's like," I said softly, "I do." That moment didn't fix anything, but it connected something inside me. For the first time, my story wasn't just about shame. It was also about witness. Maybe the only good thing that could come from all the damage was using it to stop someone else from falling as far. At night, I still wrestled with memories, but they came like storms, fierce, loud, and temporary. I learned to ride them out. I learned that healing isn't forgetting, it's remembering differently. I keep a picture of the river on my desk now, the one that runs under the old steel bridge downtown. The first week I got out, I used to sit there every morning before work, watching the current. It reminded me that water never argues with what's behind it. It just keeps moving forward. I want it to be like that now. When I talk to other women in group sessions, I tell them, your life is not over. You're still the author. Some days I believe it fully, some days only halfway, but that's enough to keep trying. I'm not proud of my story, but I'm not hiding from it anymore. I live a quiet, careful life, one grounded in truth, service, and small acts of care. Redemption isn't dramatic, it's the daily work of showing up differently. The past doesn't vanish, it becomes a landscape you learn to navigate with. 2 years after my release, life had started to take a quiet shape. I still lived simply a small apartment above a bakery. One plant on the windowsill, a coffee pot that hissed in the mornings. The noise of the past was softer now, but it never fully disappeared. I carried it like a shadow, not as punishment, but as a reminder of the weight of truth. I was working at a women's reentry center 3 days a week. The first time I walked in as a staff member instead of a client, I froze at the door. The same smell, coffee, cleaning spray, hope mixed with fear, hit me, and I almost turned around. But the director, June, smiled and said, "You belong here." That one sentence became a lifeline. My job was simple. On paper, help women fill out job applications, connect them with housing, listen when no one else would. But in practice, it was sacred work. Most of them came straight from prison buses, holding plastic bags with all they owned. Some were angry. I still walk by the river most mornings before work. Same path, same bridge, same water. I watch the current and think about all the versions of myself I've been: the child, the runaway, the offender, the inmate, the survivor, the woman still learning to be human. They all exist inside me, but they no longer rule me. People ask if I believe in redemption. I do, but not as a grand moment of light. For me, redemption looks like consistency, showing up on time, keeping my word, helping someone fill out a form, making a cup of tea for a shaking hand. Tiny, invisible repairs that add up to something steady. Sometimes I'm asked to speak at support meetings. The first time, my voice trembled. I didn't tell every detail. I just said the truth that mattered. I hurt people because I was hurting. I can't undo it, but I can make sure it ends with me. The room was silent for a long time. Then someone whispered, "Thank you." That's what keeps me going. Not applause, not approval, but the quiet understanding that even broken stories can become instructions for survival. A friend from my support group once told me, "You're turning your sentence into service." I laughed, but it stayed with me. Maybe that's what atonement really is, not guilt, but responsibility carried with grace. Now, at night, I light a candle before bed. I write 3 things I'm grateful for, even on the worst days. Some nights it's simple. The rain stopped. The cat slept on my lap. I made it through another day without lying. Gratitude doesn't erase the past, but it teaches the heart to stay open. I don't know what comes next. I still make mistakes, still get scared, but I've learned that shame shrinks in the presence of truth. And when I tell my story, not as a confession, but as a warning wrapped in hope, it loses some of its power to haunt me. This is not a happy ending. It's an honest one. And sometimes, honesty is the best kind of mercy there is. For years after my release, life has settled into something quiet. I live above a bakery, drink too much coffee, and keep one stubborn plant alive on the windowsill. Most days follow the same rhythm: work, walk, write, rest. It's not exciting, but it's peaceful. And peace was all I ever wanted. The anniversary of my release came last week. I lit a candle in a cinnamon roll and whispered, "Thank you for another chance." No big gestures, no speeches, just gratitude that I made it another year without giving up. I work 3 days a week at a women's reentry center. The same walls where I once sat trembling are now the place I help others begin again. When June, my supervisor, asked me to lead a small group, I hesitated, but she smiled and said, "You belong here." So we started a circle called Steady Hands. It's for women who don't trust groups. We sit in a circle, drink tea, and talk about surviving without destroying ourselves. That one of them, Lena, reminds me of me. Quiet, angry, brilliant. She used to sit in the back with her arms crossed. But last week she told me she'd been sober for 30 days. "You don't talk like a counselor," she said. I told her, "That's because I'm not one. I'm just someone who's still learning." She laughed. It was small, but it mattered. In class we talk about boundaries, how they're bridges. I still visit the cemetery on the hill. No one I love is buried there. It's just quiet. I sit under the old oak tree and repeat the same prayer. May I do no harm today. May I tell the truth, even when it hurts. A letter came recently, one I never thought I'd see. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. I answered carefully, truthfully, promising nothing but safety and space. Healing doesn't mean closing every wound. Sometimes it just means not reopening them. The women, at Steady Hands, call me H. They joke that I'm like their older sister. I laugh, but it feels right. Love without possession. Care with boundaries. Some nights after group I stay to clean the room. The chairs sit uneven. The air still heavy with stories. I turn off the light and whisper, "We did good work today." I still have bad days. Nights when shame tries to crawl back in. When I wonder if change is real or just practiced. But then I remember the women, the way they show up, trembling but honest. Their courage reminds me that healing isn't an ending, it's maintenance. On New Year's Eve, I skip the noise of downtown and walk to the river. The city glows behind fog, and the water moves slow, steady. I write 3 promises on a small card. Tell the truth faster. Protect my peace. Do no harm. I fold it into my pocket and stand there until the cold bites. The bridge hums with cars, the lights ripple on the water, and I realize something simple. Survival isn't luck, it's work. Every day, quiet, consistent work. I used to think redemption was a destination, a place you reach and stay. Now I know it's motion, the steady walk toward honesty. I'll always carry my past, but I carry it differently now. It's no longer a weapon, it's a warning light that keeps me aware, awake, and gentle. If you need an ending, take this one. A woman walks home in the rain, carrying groceries and paperwork for strangers who need a bed tonight. She climbs the narrow stairs above the bakery, waters her plant, and writes 3 lines in her journal. Stayed accountable. Asked for help. Did no harm. Outside, the river keeps moving forward. Inside, so does she.